Okay, in the studio we have our member for Morayfield, the Honourable Darren Grimwade. Welcome, Darren. Welcome back.
Good morning and welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show this morning.
You're more than welcome. Now, you've met our Samara over here doing some training?
Yes, no, I have. It looks like she's doing a fantastic job, so lots of on-the-job training happening.
I think she's keeping me in line, which is really good as well. Now, Darren, you've been... all last week you were in Parliament. We spoke with Lisa from Pumicestown last week, and we actually spoke to her when the bell went, so we had to let her go quickly to Parliament. So tell us a little bit about what happened last week.
Yeah, well, sure. It was an action-packed weekend in Parliament last week. There was plenty of things going on from a government perspective or a human government perspective. For us, it was all about accountability and, again, implementing those promises or those commitments we made during the last state election. So this week was about the accountability or restoring accountability in Queensland. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that we moved legislation on included things like political donations to parties. It was an expectation or a clear expectation from the community that people don't want to be using their taxpayer-funded money to benefit political parties on campaigning. No. And as it was, that was what was happening, to the tune of about $17 million. So what we've done is we've moved legislation to end the political donations from the public purse, meaning that political parties will need to fund themselves, and no taxpayers' money will be used for, the benefit of political parties and administration. So that was one of the commitments that we moved last week. Mm-hmm. The other one was to make it illegal to lie in Parliament. So again, we said that throughout the election campaign, that we would move to ensure that politicians have an expectation that what they do when they go to represent the people in Parliament is to tell the truth. And we've moved to make it now illegal, as it was before the Gordon Nuttall scandal and those sorts of things, mm-hmm. to make it illegal to lie in Parliament. So where does parliamentary privilege come in here, Darren? Well, look, parliamentary privilege is still there to cover things like, when you make an honest mistake. Okay. People will say things in Parliament, or you'll say things throughout a debate that's not scripted, and you can make an honest mistake in relation to quoting the wrong figures and things like that.
All right.
And I guess that, if you say 920 million instead of 930, and that's an honest mistake, it covers the fact that you've made an honest mistake.
All right, so that's quite different to actually lying.
Well, it's quite different to lying, or even being corrupt in the case of, the Gordon Nuttall case and things like that. When people intentionally mislead Parliament and do that, that is lying in the Parliament, and it's a contempt of Parliament. So we want to make sure that people don't have, they can't use the parliamentary privilege clause to sort of get around the fact that they've chosen to lie or mislead the Parliament. And this legislation ensures that people that do represent residents in Queensland have to tell the appropriate, truth in Parliament. So I think it's great. It's been well received by the public. So
very good, very good. Well, we can always do with that. I was always under the impression that you could get away with most things under parliamentary privilege, but quite obviously not.
Yeah, well, I mean, before this legislation, probably yes. The answer would be yes. And those laws were a bit grey, I guess, in being able to stand up in Parliament, as we saw throughout, or just before the last election campaign, things that have been said to make media headlines, these days with these new laws, no. It's an expectation that, people want to be able to trust their representatives, and I think that it's a good expectation that, those that represent the people are made to tell the truth in Parliament. Absolutely.
Very much accountable everywhere.
Sure.
Darren, we've just had our Longman federal member in, Wyatt Roy, and he was talking to us about the NDIS, and I believe that the Queensland Parliament also had a fairly robust discussion about the same thing.
Yeah, we did. Look, on Tuesday, the opposition actually moved a motion that, in its final amended reading, actually read that the NDIS be supported in state parliament and funded totally by the federal government under the Productivity Commission's report, as per the Productivity Commission's report. We had a debate about that, and it was fairly robust, including one of our members where our trial site for the NDIS was supposed to be in Gympie, Dave Gibson. Now, Mr. Dave Gibson, his parents are both legally blind, and he has a disabled child as well. So for him, it was quite an emotional type debate. You know, and at the end of the day, we debated back and forwards, and that end motion, like I said, that the state government does give support to the NDIS,
Yes.
Was actually voted. You know, all 78 members of our parliament voted in favour of that. And sadly, even though bringing politics into it, that Labor's kicking the can on one side, saying that we're not supporting it, all 7 Labor members in parliament voted against it, including one independent. So it was a stark contrast to see that the NDIS was being supported in Parliament by our side of the Parliament, yet the Labor guys, who obviously have their federal Labor colleagues jumping up and down about the Queensland support for the NDIS, chose to vote against the motion, which was just interesting. But I mean, those records are there on Hansard. They're there for people to go read and see what was said from either party, and see the final vote count. But for us, we are a government that have always supported the NDIS. Campbell Newman has always said we support it.
Right.
And in Queensland, we spend already $930 million a year supporting those with disabilities. And I think it's fair to say that, this national scheme came about because a Productivity Commission's report investigated where different states and federal governments were overlapping and those sorts of things in funding, and how the better outcomes could be under a national system rather than a state by state.
Just a state, yeah.
And in that report, it said that that the federal government should. It's a national scheme that the federal government should fund the entire project, which is about a $6.5 to $8 billion project.
Yes. I think only 2 was offered, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're throwing up. I think the disappointing part, and I tried to explain this during the last weekend as I got around, and I visited the Riding for Disabled and saw some great work that they were doing down there. And, I spoke to some parents that have children with disabilities, and what I tried to explain to them, what I was explaining to them, was that as in its current form, with things in Queensland, that the budget being so bleak, Campbell Newman went down to the COAG meeting with all the other state representatives.
That's right.
And Julia Gillard asks for us to contribute millions of dollars to this scheme, or a trial site for the scheme. Now, we put up a trial site for the scheme, being Gympie.
In Gympie, yeah.
And, she wanted the state governments who contribute a lot of money towards a scheme that had no details. We asked the question about what would the trial site entail, what would the trial site do, what benefit would those with disabilities get, and the answer was, well, we don't know, we haven't designed it yet. So we as a government who's responsible for acting in the best interest of taxpayers' dollars, we're not going to spend tens of millions of dollars contributing or committing to a scheme where there's no details of even what's going to happen. So I think that's the important part, and what Campbell has said is the state government is committed to helping those with disabilities. Yep. We do want to take part in the NDIS. That's on record. We want to. And its full implementation is in 2018. And by then, we would have got the state's books back on track. We will be in a position to support it more. But at the moment, these are only trial sites of which they don't even know the details of how they're going to work. So what we'll do as a government, we'll watch these trial sites closely, monitor their successes and failures and how things work. And then by 2014-15, when we've got the books under control, we'll be able to make a better assessment leading into 2018 of how we can support it. So, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, it looks as though you've got your work cut out there a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate, and as I said before, it's the Labor government federally, want to play a bit of political football with those with disabilities, and I don't stand for that. I don't think that's fair on families with disabilities, and we just want to see it sorted. We want to see the fact that we do support it. We want to see it happen. That's on record, and I believe that the federal member here too is supportive of wanting to see it happen. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think together we want to see it happen. Our area wants to see it happen, and that'll be a good thing if it does.
All right, that's good. Darren, in regards to public transport, now, as I said, we had Lisa on the phone. Lisa on the phone last week, and she's pushing very strongly for this for our region. Can you give us any updates on that?
Yeah, look, we're undertaking a review of the bus services around the electorate at the moment, and this coincides with the state government's South East Queensland corner. TransLink announced that in the South East Queensland corner, they will review bus rates or usage rates, where duplications are made, those sorts of things where, some services have a very low patronage, but some, you can't get a seat on, they're over-patronised. So we're just sort of doing a review in relation to the bus routes and getting some information in relation to where we can put additional buses on the road to suffice those heavy patronised routes, and some other areas that we're looking at too is looking at around the electorate or around the southeast corner. Where these routes go, where they go, is there a better way, or is there a better bus stop or a better location? Would the patronage be higher if the bus stop was put at a different spot? Would it be higher if the times were tweaked? Would it be higher if the buses more align themselves with the train?
With the trains, the park and ride situations and things like that.
That's some of the feedback we've had already in relation to the connection with the trains and the Caboolture Hospital and the TAFE out there, and maybe if we got those better aligned, then the patronage would be higher. So there's some of the things that we'll be looking at under the review. I've already had some submissions come in, so we welcome them to
we'd ask the community to get involved and get behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
To help
and we welcome that. And over the next 6 months, obviously, we'll, like the media release said, we'll work to ensure that we can have a look at all the different bus routes, take on the feedback of the people, and have a good review of how a better bus route or a better connectivity, if you like, with trains will benefit those in the local area.
We sort of, I think we discussed that it probably needs to be micromanaged for an amount of time just to actually get everything there, and an express train down, from Caboolture to Brisbane or wherever.
Well, I think this is one of the great areas, is that the Transport Minister, the Honourable Steve Minikin, he's spoken to all us members, and, he's assured that the feedback they want to get as part of this process is that us local guys that know the local area about the shopping centres and the nursing homes and the TAFEs and all these sorts of things, we need to have a good look at where the best usage of the bus services can be.
Yes.
And having a look at that as a bit of a micromanagement in relation to us locally is probably a good idea from a grassroots intention, rather than those guys in TransLink in City
sitting up there looking down.
Trying to make a decision based on local things they wouldn't understand. So I think it's a common sense approach.
Yes.
It gives the community a good chance to provide feedback and provide their consultation, and then once we've got those details, we can move forward to obviously enhance the services to the area.
Now, just on traffic and everything else, Morayfield Road, Darren, goodness.
Yes, Morayfield Road's been very interesting lately, and obviously with the Morayfield Road upgrade progressing well.
Yes,
I've just recently been advised that the new bridge, the parallel bridge in the first section there, should be open towards the end of August and September.
Oh, wonderful.
So the new traffic will sort of divert onto that new section of the road, if you like, whilst the old bridge is dismantled and the second half is installed. So that's moving along quite well.
Yep.
And I think that some of the driving patterns or the line markings and those sort of things will obviously be adjusted over the next few weeks to accommodate that switch onto the new bridge. So that's great. Now I know recently the media, you mentioned earlier that people had been talking about the sinking of lights along Morayfield Road.
Yes.
The department's recently tweaked some of those lights, made a few adjustments in relation to turning off Morayfield Road and entering on and the through traffic and things like that.
Darren, can I just interrupt you there just for a second, because I'd like to go into this a little bit more.
Sure.
Because as a driver I have an idea of how the lights should be, but you have a different way of looking at it.
Yes.
We'll just go and have a little bit of music for a minute, and listeners, I'll chat to Darren while we're listening to this music, and then we'll come back and hear a little bit more about this Morayfield Road, because I think we're all very interested in it. So we'll have Beautiful Stranger here by Madonna. Well, there you go, we're fading Madonna out because we want to get back to our Honourable Member for Morayfield. And Darren, come on, let's talk a little bit about this Morayfield Road again.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about it. As I said, I was sort of been doing some things the last couple of weeks in relation to tweaking the lights along there and those sorts of things. Now, the issue came about because there was some concerns throughout the local media in relation to, stopping and starting along Morayfield Road and lights not syncing and those sorts of things. And also that there was a few crashes in relation to turning into different areas off Morayfield Road. So that's where the concerns stem from. Now, the important thing to note is that the Morayfield Traffic Management Plan, or the Morayfield Road Traffic Management Plan, is operating the way it should, operating the way it is designed to do. So that is, an overall traffic management plan of turning on roads, turning off roads. And as you travel along Morayfield Road, lots of variables will throw themselves out there in relation to, whether you're behind a car that's turning into a office works, for example, or into a driveway. You can get caught. If you get caught behind that car, then that throws out the overall experience of driving along and catching every green light as you go along the road. So those sort of variables will throw themselves out there. The important thing to note is, we've tweaked a few things in relation to some of the intersections, and particularly turning into Devereux Road into the shopping centre and those sorts of things. The important part is that we've tweaked them, and that'll make some difference to some areas, no doubt. And that's been undertaken as part of that investigation. The important part to note is that as we go along Morayfield Road, there's lots of different areas as a total traffic management plan that come into play. Some of those are that the lights are designed along those sort of long bits of road to break traffic up. It's not one of those things where if you get one green line, you get all green lights. And I'll just touch briefly, if we've got a few minutes, on why that is. People in the Moreton Bay regional area will understand that Anzac Avenue and Redcliffe become a bit of a hoon hotspot, if you like, and one of the reasons was that it was a double lane road that went a long way, and cars were able to race along there and get every green light and hoon down the road. Part of the plan on the overall traffic involvement in that area, particularly when there's a lot of cars and there's a lot of pedestrians and there's a lot of shops and people turning in and out of different shops and locations, is to break the traffic up appropriately so that you don't have this incentive for people to hoon on down Morayfield Road. That's one of the areas that, one of the things that we look at. Obviously, we don't want that stopping at every set of traffic lights.
Oh, no.
But as a total, there are parts of the design where people are, forced to stop to break the traffic
it's deliberately done, yeah.
Well, that's right. It was part of the design.
Yes.
And one of the other areas for that is that if you had a free-flowing Morayfield Road from one end to the other right out to the highway, is that you'd see, hundreds of cars banked up trying to merge onto the highway, if you like. So it's better to have, 30 to 50 cars sort of banking up there or merging onto the highway at regular intervals, rather than a free-flowing car park, if you like, of cars that are stuck behind each other trying to get onto the highway. So the traffic management plan sort of works not just on that one intersection, it sort of flows right onto the highway, and the traffic management around the highway and people entering onto that in a safe manner. But I see that the overall part of the concern was the Morayfield Road up around the shops and
very busy area
and that. So those sort of areas are obviously being worked on and tweaked. So we'll see what happens over time when it comes to any benefit for the residents there when it comes to those sort of intersections. But I think overall, the advice has been that there's been a few things that have been tweaked that'll work. We would like to see them work. But the message there is that that we need to look at the Morayfield Road, particularly with the new upgrade coming on, as an overall traffic management plan to ensure people can access through that area safely. But understanding and utilising Morayfield Road as a through traffic plan, rather than putting the responsibility or the main onus of those entering onto Morayfield Road is the important part. It is a long road that's obviously designed to move a lot of traffic along. So,
yes, and a lot goes along there, Darren.
Absolutely.
I do thank you for explaining that, especially to me as well, because when you're caught in traffic, or caught at the damn lights, you mumble away to yourself.
Yeah, sure. I drive along that road quite frequently myself.
It's probably best not to worry too much about it, but if you know what the plan is, then you feel a whole lot more confident, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do thank you for that, and people thank our Honourable Member for Morayfield, Darren Grimwade, for coming in again, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month, Darren.
No problem, and thanks for having me on the radio this morning. I look forward to coming back and expressing some more great news for the local area.
We've appreciated it. Thank you.